But today what I want to talk to you about is how to get toned muscles. So I very often, when I get on a call with a woman that's interested in joining us here at the studio, I'll ask them, one of the first things I ask is, well, what are your goals? Because I want to know how long are we looking at to achieve their goals. There's no point in me bringing on a woman and just saying, here, let's work out, without knowing her goals or giving her some indication of how long these goals will take. Because it's a lot of times we just get into a workout routine and we just get going, and we don't even set a goal. Two, we don't even think about the fact that it takes some time to hit these goals. So good morning, Kim. So when I ask them this, a lot of times they will say, I just want to get toned muscles, or I want to tone up my body, or get some toned arms. And I know what they mean by this. They mean like they want to feel firm. They want their muscles to look nice. But the term tone quite often is used in those fitness magazines, for example, where we see those long, thin models with arms that are a mile long, and they have just maybe a little bump where their muscle is. But I want ladies to think about, not only do we want that muscle to look pretty and be toned, but we need it to be functional, and we need to be able to do things. So a lot of times what you'll see in a fitness magazine is I don't have any close by. I've got these little tiny weights. Not that there's anything wrong with these tiny weights. Don't get me wrong. I'm not bashing small weights if that's where you need to start at all. But a lot of times what we'll see in a fitness magazine is use these light weights and do like 20 or 30 repetitions, do 3 sets of those, and you'll get toned muscles. But here's the truth of the matter when it comes to, I think a lot of times a fitness magazine will put that out there because lifting heavier weights is very intimidating to women. I hear a lot of times, I don't want to get bulky, I don't want to get big, I don't want to look manly. And I get this, I totally understand this, but let me tell you a couple of things. One, in order to get big and bulky and manly, the ones you see in the magazine, they're like, oh, those women work out a lot. Most women that I see, a lot as in 6 days a week, they have a very regimented program. They are eating very strictly. They are doing probably 2 workouts a week by the time it gets to their show or their photo shoot. It takes a lot of work to get to that point. Most people that I meet are not willing to do that kind of work. And it's not even that they're not willing, it's that they don't have time to do that kind of work. They have a life they want to live. And again, I'm not bashing that work either, because that's kind of a fun focus for a time, for sure. But it's most women that I see aren't going to put that kind of time in because they have a life. They want to go spend time with their family. They want to have fun with their friends. They want to be able to eat a few foods here and there that are discretionary, that aren't going to get them to that bulky target. So one, know that it's very, very hard to build man muscle. Now, we'll say women, there are certain bodies that will be more likely to bulk. These are women that are more testosterone laden, we'll say, and they might be more likely to bulk like that. However, like I said in the beginning, when we talk about learning to balance your hormones through your fitness and your nutrition and getting a lot of these things off the plate, or directing you to somebody that can help you balance that testosterone, that's going to come off the table. That whole bulking factor will come off the table, okay? So there's that. When people tell you lift light weights, lots and lots of reps, and by lots and lots, it's like usually 15 and up, okay? That is not going to build the muscle that you want. It's too light to stimulate the body to have to produce more muscle. It will produce endurance, and that's great, but in order to actually build a muscle that can do things and that can like pop out a little bit, and I don't mean a lot, I just mean a little, we need to stress the muscle enough that in about 10 to 12 repetitions, you should be thinking, okay, I got 10 repetitions in, the 12th one, I'm not even sure if I can get this without starting to wobble on my form. So that's where you know that you are in that repetition range, that you're using enough weight that by 10 to 12 repetitions, you're really starting to feel the burn, you're starting to have to work really hard, and you're not even sure if you can complete that 12th rep, okay? That is when you know you're in the right window to actually build some muscle. And again, don't be scared by building muscle. So here's the thing. When a woman comes to me and says, I just want to be toned, that's awesome. I know they're talking about how they want to look and how they want to feel in their body. For example, when you get off the floor, let's say you're coming out of a squat, right? You're doing a squat, you put your hands on your legs. You don't want to feel your hands sink in, right? You want to feel some firm muscle. When you reach across the room, you want to see a little shoulder definition pop out. Not a massive boulder, but we want a little shoulder definition. That's, I think, what most women are talking about, being toned. But to get that kind of tone that you're thinking, you actually need to lift heavier weights. And I don't mean huge, gigantic barbells being thrown around. Not that that's wrong either. I'm just saying that don't be afraid. A lot of women are very afraid of the bigger bars and things like that. You don't just walk in a gym and jump on those. Usually you're working your way up with these, dumbbells that are in that 10 to 12 repetition range. So what happens here is the muscle's like, oh, okay, so by 10, she's straining pretty hard. And then by 12, she's had to put those down because they're just heavy enough that she can't continue to lift that weight. So what happens then, while you're resting, so the next day when you take a day off and you stretch or you do some yoga or you go for a walk, the body says, okay, while she's not doing this, we need to come in and we need to patch up that muscle and we need to build just a little bit more so that she's ready for the next one. Because if she's going to keep doing this strength training thing with these dumbbells, these bigger dumbbells, then we need to be prepared. So this is how it works. Now, if I use the light weights all the time, then I'm going to be building endurance. I'm going to train my muscle to go light for a long time, and that's beneficial for sure, but it's not going to do a lot to build me some muscle that's going to, pop out. The other thing that I think is so important that a lot of women get wrapped up in, and this is just like unfortunate event of social media and magazines, we forget that we have to do things with this muscle, right? With this body. We forget that we have to be able to shovel off the driveway or shovel off the roof of snow. We forget that we have to lift heavy boxes and that we have to carry things around the garden. And God forbid, change a tire someday. So we need to be able to do things with our muscle. I can guarantee you that the toned muscle in the Shape magazine is not going to be the kind of muscle that you need to be able to do things so that you can live a life that's functional, so that you can keep up with your grandkids, so that you can go on cool adventures and do neat things that you've always wanted to do, or just live your life. So I have a couple, what do you call them? Verses in the gym that are important to me, and I like them here for the sake of the women. Oh, in fact, I'm missing one. I've got one I haven't put up yet, and I want to show you them. So I don't know if I can zoom in on this. Oh, I can, look. Okay, so this one over the window here says, she believed she could do it, and she did. Or she believed she could, and she did. That is one of my favorite verses, and I think that or quotes, and I think the thing I like about that one so much is that, just because so many times we doubt ourselves, and then when we do get brave enough to try something, we're like, oh my gosh, I totally did that. What's the next thing I can do? I love it because it keeps raising the bar. The other thing is that when I always talk about this with the girls in here, I always talk about myself as being a concierge of the weights, or what do you call it? Yeah, concierge, that's of the weights. Because I'll have my women in here lifting their weights, and I'm looking around the room, is that enough for you? Because I'm looking at their body language, trying to make sure that they're not just do all day long. So if they're here and they're looking around, it's not enough. If they have enough weight that they have to like really hone in and focus in to get that dumbbell up, that's enough. So a lot of times I'll walk around the room and make sure they have enough weights. And I feel like I'm the Julie McCoy of the dumbbells. And you guys in the 80s will know that one. And just making sure they have enough. And it's the most awesome thing, I was going to say awesomest thing, when a girl has a 12-pound set of dumbbells. I'm like, let's just try 15. And she's never picked up the 15s before, and she picks them up, and she's like, I could totally do 15s. That's a girl that can do things. So now she sees herself, what I always say, she's a 15-pound girl. She used to see herself like, well, I'm just a 12-pound girl. And now she can see herself as a 15-pound girl, which means she can then potentially see herself as a 17.5-pound girl. We have weights that kind of jump that 5-pound range here, so it's really handy. But now she can start to see herself like this. She believed she could, so she did, because she had an experience of jumping up a little more, and now she knows she can jump up even a little more. So I also have this one phrase here. Let me see if I can get it to turn around. I can't reverse my camera, it won't work right. This one here, can you guys see this? It says, girl, you can do hard things. I love this quote because we live comfortable lives a lot of times, and it's awesome to be able to say, one of my favorite things with my clients is when they're like, I did this, so one of my clients, she's about this tall, she was getting some tile at Home Depot or Lowe's or something, and big boxes of tile. And she said this young man was helping her get out to get her tile in the car, and he could not lift it. And she's like, oh, let me take care of it. And she's just picking up the tile boxes and throwing them in. She just felt a million miles tall because she was able to do hard things. And a lot of times some clients will tell me that their friends are like, I can't believe you could do that thing, or they can hike mountains, or they can do things they never could do before. And that's a really good, one of my favorite phrases, because we're going to be faced with doing hard things, girls. So hard physical things. And yes, it's nice to have toned muscles so that when you reach across the room, there's like a bump. And I love that. I mean, I'm all about that. But we also have to remember that we have to be able to do things with those muscles. And the only way we're going to be able to do things with those hard things, with those muscles, is to be able to lift heavier weights and drop our repetitions a little bit. Okay, so I have a tiny little gal coming in today. She's adorable in like 2 minutes, so I'm gonna have to cut it off. But for example, she's a very thin person, and a lot of people would be like, oh, she is very cute and she's very tiny. And her goal is to build muscle, because what we call her is either an ectomorph or a hard gainer, which means it's hard. And there's men like this too. They're small frames. It's hard for them to put muscle on. And so the goal is to be building. Here's another little point about muscle. She's super flexible. And so it's actually not that healthy sometimes to be super flexible, because we can like flop ourselves out of our joint when our joint can move too much. So building some muscle for her around that joint is going to keep her, she may lose a little flexibility, but she will also lose the chances of her actually pulling out of a socket because her arm was overextended or whatever. So we're trying to build some muscle around the joint so that she can be protected. So that's another thing about building a little bit more muscle to protect those joints, because we got a lot of things to do with those joints. So one of my goals with my girls is to get them out there doing their life, because a lot of times when they come to me, they haven't been doing things for a while, and they're starting to kind of almost get depressed about what they can't do. We kind of have a rule here in the gym that I want you to apply to yourself when you get started doing a fitness program, is that we give ourselves grace, because a lot of times we all have a place we used to be. I used to be able to do this. I used to look like this. I used to be able to fit into these things. And that's awesome that you have a mental picture of where you used to be and where you might like to go. But we have to remember that getting frustrated about it today isn't going to move us forward. So we have to give ourselves grace to be frustrated with where you are today, and just know that every step you take is getting you further to where you want to be, to being able to do more in life, to feeling better in your skin, to being able to put on the clothes that you liked that you haven't been able to wear. And it does take time. So you have to give yourself a little bit of a runway and give yourself some time and some grace, and not beating yourself up. I really believe that if we are at odds with our body, if we look at our body and we're frustrated, which I understand that happens, but if we don't give it a little grace to say, it's okay where we are today, because every day we're doing something to move ourselves forward, then we're going to be constantly at odds. We're going to be fighting. Our brain is going to be fighting our body, and they're attached, right? So if we're constantly in a cycle of fight with ourselves, it's going to be very hard to move forward. We're going to find ourselves self-sabotaging quite often, missing workouts, eating foods that don't support good nutrition, and all of that.